Hello, this is Peter from i-doit. Thanks for attending our webinar today. I'm working here in the role of the CMDB evangelist, and I've seen a lot of ITSM tools in the past 20 years, and I'm very happy and also proud to present you a new approach to implementing a modular ITSM suite today. Thus, focus areas of this webinar are integrated IT service management with high quality tools at a fraction of the costs. And the second focus area is real-time data with live use case updated across all 4 tools. If you have questions, please post them directly into the webinar tool. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. For those of you not yet familiar with i-doit and the other ITSM tools, here's a brief overview of what you will see here today. We present you a complete modular ITSM suite consisting of 4 tools, products from European manufacturers. i-doit, which is used as the CMDB and for the complete and detailed IT documentation. i-doit has many features you possibly miss in other CMDBs on the market. JDisk is a very powerful and cost-effective network discovery tool. Then CheckMK, which is used as a network and system monitoring tool, which scales very well from small to very large enterprises. And Summit as the service desk tool, which helps us to work together as a team and with defined processes in the IT documentation. Based on a live use case with real data, the best available experts of each module will present their product features. In order to show the benefits of a seamless integration across all 4 products, Christian Walli from the company Don't Panic in Austria will provide us with a live demo and testing environment for this session. Hello, Christian.
Hello, Peter. Hello, everybody. Welcome from Austria.
Hello. Christian, you and your colleagues invested a lot of time to provide a complete demo environment. Thanks for that, and that we can use it today in this webinar. Is it also possible for our webinar attendees to click around in your environment for hands-on?
Of course, everybody is invited to make their own testings, and it is reachable under demo.panic.at, but as far as I know, every attendee will get an email in the next days with the link where they can reach the demo environment.
Okay, great. So in the lifecycle of the server, we will show you in the first step what will be documented whilst the ordering process. This is done in i-doit, and Christian will show us this and how to. In the second step, when the server comes physically into our environment, we put a few more data into the CMDB to enable the next automatic step. Okay, Christian. So we will be right back to you soon. Besides i-doit, the underlying IT documentation and CMDB tool, we will present JDisk as module number 2. JDisk is a very powerful network discovery tool. The presenter, Thomas Trenz, is founder and managing director of the company JDisk. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Peter.
Hi. Thomas, you have been doing discovery for many years and have completed hundreds of projects, as I know. From your experience, why do your customers still need a CMDB when they already have a detailed data in the discovery database?
Well, Peter, you know, the discovery is just an important part of an IT management solution. However, the focus of a discovery is to gather data that can be automatically obtained by the devices themselves, like serial number, brand, model, and so on. However, there's information like IT process when you want to document your IT processes, if you want to document your IT services, or even manually maintain data like association of assets to rooms or to buildings, then the CMDB is the place to go.
Okay, great, thank you. So processes are also key factor in IT service management, and discovered items alone will not do this job. So we will be right back to JDisk, and Thomas will show us in the third step how JDisk provides us with a lot of detailed data from the discovery process and we also show you the integration between Discovery and the CMDB. As tool number 3, we will introduce CheckMK, a powerful monitoring tool that scales very well, even for large environments. CheckMK will be presented by Martin Hirschvogel, his product manager at Tribe29, which is the company behind the product. Hi, Martin. Can you explain why it is important to do IT monitoring?
Hey, thanks everyone for joining today. This is Martin. I think as IT operations, you want to know about issues before your users can tell you about them or tell you about them. So if you know about these issues before, you can actually fix them before they impact users, cause real problems for your company. And with a good monitoring system, you can actually even become more proactive, and you can prevent issues because, for example, you know a hard drive or database is getting full, you have too much CPU load on a system, or the performance of a web service deteriorates.
Okay, Martin, thank you. But what are the variants of CheckMK? There is more than one variant, right?
Yeah, we come from the open source space, so obviously we have an open source solution. You can immediately download a complete monitoring solution without any limits from checkmk.com and get started with monitoring. We also have an enterprise edition if you, for example, require support, want to have a higher performance and want to benefit from some additional features, which simplify your monitoring and automate some workflows.
Okay, so also very cost effective and also scalable to enterprise business. Thank you for the insights on CheckMK, Martin. We will see in the demo the handover process between CMDB and monitoring and how to monitor the server in the production environment. So the next module, tool number 4, is the service desk called SAMAT. With SAMAT, the handling of all service desk processes, whether they are incidents or service requests, is extremely simple. Also, collaboration of IT teams is made particularly easy. Martin Edenhofer is founder and managing director of SAMAT and will provide us with first-hand information about the tool. Hi, Martin.
Hi.
Martin. Like all other presenters in this webinar, you also have many years of experience in your field. How did you start the SAMAT project?
When I was young, about 18 years ago, I saw the need of a tool which is handling service requests for customers in future. So I took the chance and I started a helpdesk tool which got very famous. It's named OTRS, but after some years, I found out that the time was moving, but OTRS not. This was the reason why I started SAMAT from scratch with the experience in the area of over 12 years and with the new technology of today.
Okay, so in the last step of this live demo, the service desk comes into play. You will show us the details of SAMAT and we will simulate an issue and Martin will show us the integrated workflow of the tools to us. So now that we know the brains behind our tools, let's get started right away. I'll now hand it over to Christian, who will guide us through the live demo. This needs 1 second. Okay, Christian.
Okay, you all see my screen with our demo environment.
Yes, that works great.
Okay, so at the start page, you find links to all the tools we will see in the webinar today, like i-doit, of course, SAMAT and CheckMK, and also our own add-ons to i-doit, like the add-on, which will support you with your change management process, a label printer to produce beautiful labels with i-doit for your inventories, our password manager, and of course the i-doit data privacy add-on, which extends i-doit to document or to fulfill the documentation requirements imposed by the European data protection regulations that we'll see a little bit in the webinar. And at last, a simulator with which you can simulate incidents which will be recognized with CheckMK. But at first, let's have a look at i-doit. So all the tools we will see today are integrated, so partly among each other, but certainly with i-doit. So you might view i-doit as the information hub, which provides information about documented objects to XAML and to CheckMK, but also gather information from JDisk and provides information from XAML about related tickets and about incidents, related incidents from CheckMK. In the webinar today, we assume that we plan to purchase and integrate a new virtualization server, and we call this virtualization server Algo. And even before we place the order at our hardware supplier, we can and should do some documentation, such as the actual location, the physical location of the virtualization server will be, and maybe we also know which model we will order. We can do some contact information and so on.
Yeah, it brings me to a short question. You said we should do it now at this stage of the process. Why at this time? There is no physical server at the moment.
Yes, of course, but the capacity management should take place even before the hardware arrives. So, for example, you could have a look at the server rack where the server will be placed in the future. And at one glance, you can see that if there is enough space, free space in the rack, and you already can position the new server, which will arrive in a few days. And if there weren't enough space in the rack, you have to make a follow order so that the server could be mounted in a new rack.
Okay, great, thank you. Capacity management can also be done before at this stage. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, but now that we have done the basic authentication, I would like to hand over to Thomas and give him the mouse and the keyboard, of course. Thomas, please show us something about JDisk and the discovery process.
Yeah. Can we switch to the VM? Okay, thanks. So thanks, Chris, for putting the server into the network. Our discovery tool is usually scheduled to run, let's say, every day at a particular time. And after a while, it will pick up the new device. And let's have a quick look at the devices that we have found in your network. We can have a report which is called All Devices. And the All Devices report just gets us a list of all devices that have been found so far. And as I mentioned before, the discovery tool is a pretty generic discovery tool. And the goal is to identify virtually any device on the network, regardless of vendor, type, manufacturer, or model. And you can see here we have quite a lot of different vendors like HP devices, Supermicro servers. We have different device types like switches, wireless LAN repeaters, desktops, and so on, even NAS devices. And we get a pretty lot of data. We get the serial numbers, the model, the brand, and so on, but also network information like network interfaces, IP addresses, VLANs on the switches, and so on. But now we would like to look at the newly discovered device, which is Algor. So we are filtering in our device list for Algor, and here we find our server. So it has been discovered. We have found out that this is a VMware server. It's running ESXi 6.5. We also have the firmware version, the serial number, and so on. And by a double click, you get to the device details for this particular device. And you have a lot of different areas here which you can look at. On ESX server, of course, the most important thing is the virtualization tab, which gives you the list of running virtual machines. So on this physical server, we have actually one virtual machine running at the moment with this IP address. It's a Windows Server 2019. It has this serial number. And if you double click on this device again, you will get to the details of that particular machine. As another example, I would like to show you what kind of information we get for laptops, for instance. Here we have my Apple laptop. It's MacBook Pro with running Windows 10 Pro. if you double click on that device again, you get to the device details. And for instance, in the hardware section, you get information about the processor. So here, you know, it's one processor. It has 4 cores, 4 and 8 threads. So hyper-threading is enabled. You get information about the memory modules. Here we have 16 GB of memory. I don't want to show all the different tabs. You have quite a lot of information. Maybe the most important one is about the software. And the first tab tells you about the operating system. So you get quite a lot of information about the operating system, including the product key, which is obfuscated here for obvious reasons. But we also get applications, the list of applications installed on that machine. And we even get application instances, which are, for instance, database instances running. In this case, we have a Postgres database, which is stopped, and it's configured to run on port 4550. You would also see here web server instances, application server instances, and so on. So what I just wanted to bring to you in this presentation is that our discovery tool is getting quite a lot of information from all kinds of devices in the network. And the good thing is, as Chris is showing you later, this information can be easily transferred into i-doit.
Yes, brings me to another question. Does it make sense to import all the data from Discovery into the CMDB or partly? How do you see this?
Usually it makes no sense to import all the information. We also gather information which is just runtime information, like the list of running processes. This is a kind of information that you would never ever import into the CMDB.
If necessary, it's possible, but it's not advised. It's not your advice, right?
But in some cases, this information might be useful.
Okay, great. Thank you, Thomas, for the insight into JDisk. Now, we would like to get these details into i-doit. There is a standard interface which will do this job. And Christian, please, can you show us how to do this and how it looks like to import all these technical details into i-doit?
Okay. So i-doit provides similar ways to import information from external sources, and you will find all the import dialogues under the menu entry extra CMDB and import. And there you'll find the import module JDisk. Here you have several options to choose. Of course, you could import information from more than one JDisk server. You have to choose which JDisk group you like to import. You could also define some filters if you don't like to import everything from this JDisk group. And one of the most important things, as you have mentioned, are the JDisk profiles, because these profiles allow you to choose which information from JDisk can get imported to i-doit. So these JDisk profiles or i-doit come with some predefined import profiles, but you can use these import profiles as a starting point for your own import profiles. So for our purpose today, we use the complete import, and the next option is the import mode. As we already have an object for the server we like to import, we don't like i-doit to create a new object, but enrich the actual documented object called Algol with the discovered informations from JDisk. So our preferred import mode is today the import update. And if I start the import job now, JDisk is queried from i-doit, and it takes several seconds to import all the information which JDisk provides for the group Don't Panic. And after these several seconds, we got the success message, which tells us we have 2 devices imported and created some objects, mainly software objects and network objects. And if we go back to our virtualization server Algol, you find that we have a lot more information which are now filled, like the storage and memory and CPUs are built in and so on. And one of the most interesting things we have imported are the guest systems which are running on the server. So we don't have only imported information about the server itself, but also about the hosted systems on the server.
Okay, short question for the pros. Hardware. Yeah, short question, Christian. You imported this manually by clicking on this button before. This can also be done automatically, I think.
Yes. i-doit comes with a command line interface, the console, and via the console you can also trigger the import processes. And of course, you can let do this a grown job, so you can import the newly discovered devices from JDesk on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. So far, we have completed the entire documentation work in the CMDB and imported the data from JDisk. Okay, can I also start monitoring now from i-doit directly?
Thank you, Peter. Yes, of course. i-doit is limited to import the data from JDisk, but is also able to export this information to the monitoring system CheckMK. For this purpose, there exists a so-called category. It's named CheckMK host. And there we have, all we have to do is to say, yes, please activate the export process, use the host name as host name in CheckMK. In this case, we use the IP address, the primary IP address of the discovered IP address of the host. And we tell CheckMK where to place, in which folder to place, in this case, the root folder, the host, and we tell CheckMK which means it can use to monitor the newly configured server. And what we have to do next is to update, to push the information to CheckMK. For this purpose, I can click this button and push the information to CheckMK. But of course, this could also be done via a command line interface. So a cron job could do this on a regular basis, so that newly discovered devices would appear in CheckMK, such as this server. So when I change back to CheckMK and have a look at the Veto folder, I see the algol server which we have exported and can now be configured for monitoring. But I would ask Martin to show us how it is done. So please, Martin Hirschvogel, could you take over the mouse and the keyboards?
Yes, hey, thanks very much. So basically, thanks to i-doit, we already know in CheckMK that there's a new host, the host algol, and that has already all the information needed for CheckMK to actually monitor that. And what we'll do now is basically actually add this host to the monitoring environment and tell CheckMK, hey, monitor that and let me know what is actually interesting on that and what I can actually monitor as a user then. So the first thing to do that is actually we will look into this host directly. We can already see then what kind of information we got already from i-doit. So we know, for example, the IP address already from i-doit. We know actually how to contact it. Here we contact this one on a special way, how we talk directly to the API of the vSphere that has been configured before already, but we know basically under this IP address we can reach it. So the only thing which we actually need to do is we actually need to now discover what is actually on this server. So for that, I click on Save and go to Services for that specific host. And then what CheckMK does, CheckMK automatically starts to discover all the relevant information for you on that server. And here we can already see basically the list of the changes, and you can see already, okay, hey, there's some basic information already around the CPU, for example, around file systems, around memory, and around multipaths. And we can actually now say, hey, let's monitor these things. So CheckMK already discovers automatically. There's no need for you to configure anything. You can just say, hey, I want to monitor these things. And so basically now we actually moved all these items to monitored services, which means CheckMK will now start monitoring them and will now start alerting you as soon as it discovers there's something problematic going on. One thing we need to do always in CheckMK is we need to activate changes, and quickly do that here. You need to activate changes in the configuration. You can automate that obviously, but for this purpose here, we do that manually. And now let's look a little bit into basically, I would say the overview to see, is the host there? Can we see it? And here we can already see, okay, the host has been added to the monitoring. We can see already, is the host up or down? We can also look deeper into the host and see, for example, okay, these services, what is the current value of these services? And see, for example, okay, hey, I'm here, secured utilization over time. We could look even deeper into past performance of the server. CheckMK stores the data for quite some time. And you can also then at the next step say, okay, there are already pre-configured thresholds for everything, but you could always say, hey, I want to be alarmed on different levels, or I want to be alarmed in a different way. Who do I want to have who should get a notification for an alert? And you can do all these things. And so CheckMK can do a lot of things here. We will just go into the very basics. So basically that you can see what we see right now. You can do obviously more, but for the purpose of this, these are the information you see. And I will actually now hand over back, because one thing is actually knowing about things, knowing how the status is. The next thing is you need to actually fix them, and you need somehow to be notified how to get these things fixed. And here we have a great integration, for example, to Samad, and Chris will show how that works.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. At the beginning, I mentioned our simulator. If you click the simulator, you could simulate a service failure. In this kind, it would be the Samad and the Samad service. And if we have a look at the service, we could tell to check it again, and we see, okay, we have a warning for this specific service. So one of the main things CheckMK can do for you is alerting. And one possibility to alerting is to create tickets. So what should be done is it should CheckMK should create a ticket at Samad, and so I'm wondering why it isn't done now. Okay. I'm really sorry. It's
the demo effect, of course.
It might be the demo effect, because what you see here, CheckMK has already created a ticket, but it was several hours before. It is 4 hours and 28 minutes before our webinar has started. And now, okay, you see, Samad has a new ticket created from CheckMK.
Here it is now.
So it only took several seconds, and I was too impatient. So CheckMK created a ticket at Samad, and not only created this ticket, but also created in the ticket a link to the corresponding I-doit object. But now I will hand over to Martin Edenhofer. Please, Martin, show something about Samad.
Thank you, Christian. Samad is an open source help desk with a wonderful, easy to use and clean UI. This makes you happy and makes you able to have a very short onboarding time for new agents to work with Samad. But let's start with our use case more in detail. To be able to communicate between Samad and i-doit or JackMK, you need to connect it before. It's quite easy, and you can do it in the Samad admin area. You just need the URL endpoint and an API key to do so. Samad is designed to work with many communication channels like email, phone, Twitter, and Facebook. In our case, we communicate with JackMK via the Samad REST API. If a new event from JackMK arrives to Samad, a new notification is shown, like it was a few seconds before here on this position, and I can open it to see what's going on. You can so you just need to click it, and the ticket is opened. On the left side of this ticket, you see you have the possibility to assign this ticket to a group or to a department which is responsible for this ticket. You also can assign the ticket to a certain owner which is responsible in person to this ticket, for example. And also important is the ticket state, is the next one, to see the current state of the ticket and if somebody needs to work on it or probably the issue is already solved. Usually in first level, we verify the initial ticket and solve it in, for example, in the second level. So for this, you can use these groups or departments to hand over the ticket with all the history to have a short solution way in the second level.
Okay, great, Martin. Thanks for this insight. One more question. We are now in some called incident management process. Is it also possible to process other workflows in Samad, for example, service requests by employees, or is there only incident and fault management included?
Mm-hmm. Yes, in Samad standard or with Samad standard default features, you can manage service requests and incident management. If you want to do more enhanced process management on Samad, in Samad with tickets, it's not possible right now, but default service requests and incident management is possible.
Okay, great. So one more question to Samad and i-doit, to the integration. I think Christian would be the right guy to answer this. How about information management? Samad can also be used as a cloud service, and i-doit is mostly used as on-premises tool. So is it possible to put them together, and which data is in which tools in this process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At last, it's only a REST API which is queried from i-doit, and in the other direction, Samad asks the JSON RPC API from i-doit. So if this, if Samad is in the cloud, lives in the cloud, and i-doit is installed on premises on the own network, you have to provide some kind of VPN or have to port forward for the Samad cloud instance to reach the JSON RPC API from i-doit to function in the way we have seen it.
Okay, so it's possible to transfer data, but it's also possible to only transfer an ID link into Summit that there is no information about your CIs and asset in detail, right?
Okay, yes, in fact, there is no information synchronized. All the information provided only have one truth, and it's in i-doit. All the data from i-doit lives in i-doit, and what we see is always a live view. So there is no information synchronized from i-doit to Zammert, but only linked to.
Okay, great. So another thing we thought about data and integrations and data protection and so on. We come to this point later on again. Okay, so far we have presented the individual processes in the life cycle of a new server. And of course, there are many more processes to think about. However, almost all of them can be handled with this high-performing modular ITSM suite. By the way, after this webinar, all attendees will get an email with access to the recorded webinar and to Christian Wallis' demo environment from Don't Panic. The system will also feature free i-doit add-ons, which you can see then later in the demo environment, the RFC add-on to handle and support change controls. As Christian mentioned in the beginning, there's a label printer add-on to produce labels with i-doit, and the data privacy add-on, which will now the next topic of our demonstration. Let's now take a quick look at the topic of compliance, Christian. In the context of the European Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, companies across Europe today are faced with many additional documentation requirements. And Christian, can you please briefly show us how we can comply with these additional requirements to our documentation?
Yes, of course, very brief. Yes, because to show you how to document the processing to fulfill the requirements from GDPR would fill a webinar by its own. But at the basic, we need i-doit to add a new layer to i-doit. Of course, from the ITSM view of things, the IT service would be the top layer where we stop documenting. But we need the next layer, we call it the processes, which will be supported by our IT services. Because these services or these processes, we need to answer the questions like, what are the purposes of the processings, or who are the data subjects, and what are the time limits for erasure of the data we have processed, or what is the legal basis on which the processing is done, and so on. So what the data privacy add-on do is extend these object categories in i-doit, and also provides a mean of generating a document with the content required by the Article 30 GDPR. This document has to be handed over to the supervisory authority on request, of course, but maybe also the starting point for internal audits done by the data protection officers and so on.
So this document can also be provided directly out of i-doit with this add-on, right?
Yes, it will be generated a PDF, and this document has also necessities which is required by the authorities, yes.
Okay, so as far as I understood it, there is a layer above the normal IT environment, above the services, and these are the processes, and you document them directly in i-doit, in the IT documentation, and then you're putting the questions and answers from this GDPR necessity directly on these objects, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. So thank you, Christian. So your customers are well positioned regarding audit and GDPR, right?
Yes, of course. This information, the means to start with every audit and with every decision of how to protect the data and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but that's not the only thing about compliance requirements. There is ISO 27001 also, and there's a lot of IT documentation as a basic requirement. How about this functionality? Is there also an answer in our toolset?
Yes, of course there is. There exists an add-on, it's called the ISMS add-on, the Information Security Management System add-on, which supports information security officers in their tasks of risk assessment, risk management by applying the appropriate security controls to the assets, and also generating the statement of applicability, which is needed if you like to certify your organization to ISO 27001. It can be done with this add-on called ISMS add-on.
Okay, thanks. So we can recommend the entire toolset to our webinar attendees to handle their documentation tasks as well as many other service management tasks, right?
Yes, for instance, with the change control process, we provide the RFC add-on, but you can also handle the request fulfillment process and the incident management process and much more, which is needed for proper ITSM.
Yes, so there exists many add-ons for additional features within i-doit, and if you go on to our homepage i-doit.com, you will see there are a lot of them provided by us or by our development partners, and you get a lot of additional functionality with these add-ons. So yes, you reschedule this check. Now you make the things back to up and running in our simulation and demonstration. There is another question for me. As we have seen, CheckMK and monitoring is a huge and complex tool, but there are not every IT employee working in the IT is allowed or in the possibilities to work with these tools. Is there an integration back into i-doit where I can see this actual status also? Christian,
yes, of course. In i-doit, yes, thank you very much, Peter. i-doit, as I've mentioned in the beginning, doesn't only provide information to the other tools, but also gather information from, of course, JDisk, as we have seen, but also from Zammert and from CheckMK. And what we have to do is, in the category monitoring, tell i-doit where it gets the information from CheckMK. There exists possibly more than one monitoring instance, and we have to tell what is the host name in CheckMK. As we have exported it, we can be confident it is the same as we have exported. So we could save this information, and if everything works right, we get the information from CheckMK. So the information about the services we have seen in CheckMK, we also see in i-doit. And the same applies to Zammert. We have a category called all tickets. So in this place, we would see tickets which were opened, for example, by CheckMK and related to this object. So this information could help us in our problem management task.
Okay, so i-doit works there as we said in the beginning, as information host for all other processes and tools which provide their information about ups and downs and data and changing data, etc. And we can see the whole processes within i-doit. Great integration. Thanks for that, Christian.
You're welcome.
So we've seen this complete demo. I take now back the overview. Hopefully it works. Yes, I think so there. So what we have seen in this application today is the ordering and a basic documentation process done by Christian Walli directly manually in i-doit. Then he simulated that the server is delivered and installed, and he added the additional information about the serial number to synchronize this later on with the automatically discovered data from JDisk, which we have seen in the third step. Excuse me. JDisk then provided this discovery data directly, or parts of it, directly into i-doit. And in the fourth part, we handed the information over to monitoring. So we shortened this communication process between the documentation team and the monitoring team, if you want this. So then we have seen CheckMK and the possibilities to monitor the new server, and then we simulated an issue and handled over from CheckMK this information about the issue directly into Samad, and then we made in Samad, in the service management service desk tool, the fault handling process. All of them directly integrated within i-doit to see the complete information. If you have any questions, here are today's presenters and more. Here are the links to the companies behind our tools, and the integration guy who did this complete integration with his team is Christian Walli. If you've got any questions now, please feel free to put them into the chat tool from GoToWebinar we are using here. I have a few more minutes to answer the questions if there are any. Possibly one question which is of course on the hand now is who will provide this complete integration, Christian? I think you are providing this as a service from your company, right? The integration of all those 4 tools, right?
Yes, we have complete set of Ansible playbooks. So it's a matter of several minutes to install the complete set. We call it ITSM Galaxy. And yes, we charge a certain amount of money for the installation and the support for this tool set and make the complete integration, but it is no magic. So everybody who is interested in technique could do it by themselves. I think the most things could be configured via the web GUIs of the different tools. So we make it for you, or you can do it yourself.
Okay, so there are available sources, as you mentioned. We've got appliances from i-doit and also from the other tools. There are Docker containers and Ansible playbooks provided by our partner Don't Panic. There are evaluation licenses from the tools, and there is a lot of knowledge in our knowledge bases and much more. If you have questions, please contact our sales team, sales@idoit.com, and we forward the questions to our partner companies if it's applicable. So the message is get up and running with these complete ITSM tools set in a few hours, not in months. It's only a task about few hours. And yeah, if there aren't any more questions, we say thank you for attending, for the attention and your interest. And yeah, see you next time in a webinar. Thank you very much and goodbye.